absolutely wonderful for me to be here today. I studied myself in Groningen 25 years ago now, and at the moment I'm in the board of alumni of the University of Groningen, so I have absolute passion and love for this city and this great entrepreneurial university. And also for our shared profession, to be a communication professional. And I met Ikje in actually several years ago already, and I gave a presentation at the Prera and the conference in Groningen and Amsterdam. And actually what I really liked about the conference is that it summarized for me what our role is as a communication professional, and actually also what I was able to do in the Rijksmuseum. Because I think this is a dream that we all have, and we all want a better world, which is inclusive, which is sustainable, which is innovative. And we as communication professionals, we have the power to create a world like that within an organization. And the way I did it in the Rijksmuseum, and I didn't do it on my own, we did it with the whole team, I'm going to tell you today. But it's actually also the same role you can take within a university, within your team here. I do at the moment the same thing at the Bijenkorf. So for me, communication, I think it's a dream job, because you can connect people, you can create futures, and you can make a better world. You can help to create a better world. And I'm going to tell you now today what we did in the Rijksmuseum. When I joined the Rijksmuseum, it was not actually a dream job. I remembered one of my first days, I did a tour through the whole building, and it was looking like this. The whole building was open and for reconstructions. These were divers. They were already for months building a new floor, and it was an absolutely mess. And in the end, we became one of the leading museums of the world. The European Museum of the Year, President Obama visited the Rijksmuseum, so it was an actually big success. But it was really hard work with a lot of great people. The renovation, it started in 2003. It had a lot of discussion in the Netherlands. Of course, it took too long. The budget increased the whole time, and the image was that the museum was very close, very dusty, not suitable for children, so quite far away from a modern society. And in the end, it was another ball game, and a lot of people asked me afterwards, how did you do that with the team? And I developed this quite simple model. I did it for ICOM, this is the International Conference of Museums, and actually it's the 7 steps towards a love brand. And I think it's quite common sense, but if you take all these elements in some sequential order, you can create this new environment. And the first step is really about brand identity. It's about who do you want to be, who are you in the end? And maybe some of you know this image about the Rijksmuseum being really the pride of the Netherlands. It was really on all big newspapers all around the world. But it was an image we worked towards for several years. We really had this image in our mind already for a few years. And it started in 2010, what I saw when I was lying on the couch. The Rijksmuseum was very prominent as a backdrop of the whole party. And I thought, if these guys who lost the finals, can make people in the Netherlands so proud and so happy, and that even people who don't like football like me are watching this, why shouldn't the Rijksmuseum, the National Museum, can give the same feeling to people? That not, maybe you don't like art, maybe you don't like history, but you're proud because it's your museum. So when I returned back to the office, a lot of people were still very hard working on all the new innovations which had to be installed, the new presentations. And I said, we have to approach this in a different way. We should focus on being proud of the Netherlands, being the museum of the Netherlands. And that was at that time quite a big discussion because it was quite nationalistic, but in essence it fitted very well. Because the Rijksmuseum is the biggest collection in the Netherlands, and it was actually also one of the main reasons why the Rijksmuseum was founded. This is Koning Lodewijk. He was the brother of Napoleon, and he was the king of the Netherlands around 1806, 1810. And when he came here in the Netherlands was quite a mess. There were a lot of wars between different provinces, and he thought, you know, I need to give these people some kind of connection, some kind of meaning together. And he knew, of course, the Louvre in Paris, and he thought, maybe I should give these people a national museum. And there was some kind of art collection from the Oranges who fled to England, and he brought it to Amsterdam, and there he made the Nationale Kunstgalerij, really to make the Dutch people proud of their arts and history. And it also fitted the Museum of the Netherlands, and this is actually where the museum was installed in 1880, but before that it was also on the Dam Square, it was in the Trippenhuis, several places, and in 1880 it was installed here. It also fitted in terms of the new presentation. Before the Rijksmuseum was closed in 2003, the presentation was really based on functional areas. So you had a department of paintings, you had a department of ceramics, department of history, and all these departments were not talking to each other. And the big innovation actually of the Rijksmuseum, it's quite funny, is it's not about the marketing or the renovation of the architecture, is that they brought these departments together, and they said, the former director said, you have to tell together the story of the Netherlands. So you as an art historian, you have to work together with the curator of paintings, and you have to work together with the curator of ceramics and with the curator of textiles, and tell together the story of the Netherlands. And that became the new presentation, which was really based on more in a chronological way. And it sounds now for you maybe very logical and very easy, but actually this was the most difficult thing. These people with a different background had to work together. So the new presentation was also telling the story of the Netherlands, and of course the Rijksmuseum has also, well, the main collection of arts in the Netherlands. You all know the Night Watch. This is Bergheide and Michiel de Ruiter as an historical example. And it meant that if you will say the Museum of the Netherlands, this is our main thing, how we will position ourselves, how we see ourselves, that we will talk more about these parts of our collection compared to, for instance, Goya or our Asian Pavilion. And that was quite difficult, of course, for some of our colleagues, because they were taking care of these part of our collections, which are also world famous. But you have to make decisions to be clear. If you don't choose, you'll not be chosen. So this was quite a big choice. And identity is also about visual identity. So at the time that we had chosen, okay, this is the museum we want to be, we also started working, okay, how should the museum look like? And we developed together with Irma Boom, maybe some of you know her, she's a very well-known artist of the Netherlands. Her artists and her designs are collected by the MoMA, by the Stedelijk. We created this new visual identity, which was really focused on this Dutch design of being very bold. We used the old arts and put them in a modern way again back. So we used the colors of old paintings, so it's the Milkmaid, for instance, into new color settings. If you know then who you are, then becomes the next phase. How do you want to work together, and what are your values? And which I think was a very good decision by the board of directors of the Rijksmuseum, is that we did this in a bottom-up way. We developed 5 values, which were very critical and are still used now on a daily basis in the Rijksmuseum for everything we do. And the first 2 values is about authenticity and quality, which I think is essential for a museum to be authentic and to have the highest quality. And then we developed 3 new values, which I think made a difference for the Rijksmuseum. It's about personal, approaching the public and the audience in a personal way. It's about innovation, and that's not about being technically innovative, but to be creative the whole time and think different and look for new opportunities. And the third one is eenvoud, simplicity, And I think that was, in the end, the most difficult one, because you have to know very well what you're doing if you want to communicate in a simple way, or if you want to organize your structures and process in a simple way. And we called these 5 values the ACPI in Dutch. And for everything we did, we tested it, is it according to our values? And everybody was doing that because we lived these values through workshops. So the Rijksmuseum was organized in 18 different departments. So from security, finance, to all the different curatorial departments and also restoration. And all these departments had to come up with a plan, being the Museum of the Netherlands and being maybe one of the leading museums of the world. But then based on these values, what are you going to do? How are you going to be authentic? How are you going to be simple? So that made that these values were very much internalized by the whole team. And actually we did some kind of strategy planning bottom up. And maybe some of you have already heard, I said as a second sentence, one of the leading museums of the world. And it was not on the sentence I wrote before, because that was really a big discussion. When we came up with that sentence, the Rijksmuseum, the Museum of the Netherlands, I said immediately we have to add maybe something like being one of the leading museums of the world, because we can be that. And that was a bit too much for a lot of our colleagues. So we took it away, but we had it as an ambition constantly in the back of our minds. So here's the workshops. They started in 2010. It took me almost a year, because at all these 18 departments I was doing workshops for the communication department, all the different employees, and go through the whole system. So everybody felt that they were part of the team. So then you know who you are, how you want to work, but who is then your audience? To who do you want to talk to? And we developed a system which was quite simple. We developed 6 different target groups, and they were segmented based on the knowledge they have before they go to a museum, and also the reason why they come today. So we didn't segment on age or on income or any other thing, but more, why are you coming today to a museum and what do you know? So it's, for instance, possible that if I go to a museum for a weekend, I'm more like a cultural tourist. Next time I'm more with family with kids. And to go through all these things. The first is the cultural tourists, which is a very big group for the Rijksmuseum, but they come regularly. They go to Amsterdam for a weekend and they want to quickly see the highlights. The second one is the really traditional museum visitor, people that have a museum card. I think most of you maybe know it. It's a card you can have from the government in the Netherlands, and then you can go for free to any museum. So these are people that are really following what's happening in the arts world and really very active in visiting museums. Then we have family with kids, which is very important for us in terms of education. Professionals like art historians, but also artists. It's a small group, but they were important for us as a recommendation for other visitors. Schools. And then the new group was the potentials. And that was actually a new group we added on a later stage of the development of the whole plan. Because in the beginning I had 5 different groups, and then one of my colleagues said, "But Marjolein, if you're always talking to these groups, then we always get the same people. There are a lot of people in the Netherlands who never visit a museum." So we did a lot of research, and then we found out that a lot of people everybody goes in the Netherlands almost to the Efteling every year. Maybe you recognize that. And almost every Dutch person has been to the Louvre, but a lot of people had not been to the Rijksmuseum. So we really were targeting people who were open to going to a museum, but not frequently going. And also what we said, okay, who is now our benchmark? When I joined the Rijksmuseum, we were looking at the Van Gogh Museum, the Amsterdam Museum and the Stedelijk, and they are very good museums in Amsterdam. But if you say we're the National Museum of the Netherlands and we want to be part of the best museums of the world, then you need to have different benchmarks. And these were the visitors numbers at that time of the Louvre, the British Museum and the Hermitage, with quite impressive numbers, but the Rijksmuseum has these numbers now as well. And then comes another phase, because then you know, okay, this is who I am, how do I want to work for who, but how are you going to achieve this? And I think here that visualizing this dream is extremely important. So we set this goal, we want to be the Museum of the Netherlands, one of the great of the world, 2 million visitors after the reopening. That was a doubling of the museum visitors. It only was around 1 million in the years before. 50% should be Dutch and 50% international. Movie trailer, we really called it a trailer, as being a movie is now already 6 years old, I would say. And it made a complete change in the way people were looking at us, because a lot of colleagues had maybe some doubts, a lot of sponsors or people from the politics. And when they saw this trailer, I mean, it's quite easy. It's nice music, nice text, and the rest is blue. Everybody said, now I understand what your goal is. And I want to be part of it. I had colleagues who were looking at this trailer because the museum was then already closed, for 7 or 8 years. And they really were not motivated anymore. And then they said, I'm looking at this trailer now every morning before I start working. And then I said, okay, we go for it. And there were sponsors who said, okay, I've seen this trailer, it's so absolutely wonderful. How can I donate more money to get this trailer on TV? So it really made a big change. It's about visualizing your dream and also actually to use the emotion, in a quite easy way, but it works. And then we started to work really with our communication strategy. And I don't call it really a communication strategy in that sense, because we're really focused on creating brand ambassadors. So my previous boss, Wim Pijbes, he said, there's only one goal for you. I want people, waiting at the finish and applauding at the finish before the Rijksmuseum opened. You have to create the ambassadors before you open, that people are really involved and really waiting for the museum until it opened. And we focused on free publicity, because as you all know, it's much more powerful if somebody else saying you're doing a good job than if you say it yourself. Creating ambassadors, and we really worked on creating ambassador per target group. Online, partnership, advertisement and events. And I realized more and more now, a lot of things is very logical, but of course the whole online marketing and communication, it dramatically changed in the last 7-8 years. In 2010, social media was hardly used by any museum. And we developed it in 3 phases. Involvement, that was the phase we started 1.5 years before the reopening. Then we started building suspense, and actually only 2 weeks before the Rijksmuseum opened, we started our campaign. And that was actually quite easy. I learned that I still had this soccer thing back in my mind, and I analyzed that they always start 2 weeks before the event starts with the communication. I said, I'm going to do the same. They're successful in this for years already. And a very important element of this whole involvement was about bringing the product back to the audience. Some of you maybe know Rijksstudio. It's the website of the Rijksmuseum where we have all the, not all the collection, but I think around 200,000-300,000 now at the moment. The collection of the Rijksmuseum, all the images are free, downloadable for use. And that was really a big innovation in the museum world that we did that. Until that time, the museum was very much, every museum was very much closed. You could see a painting in a museum. And if you wanted to use an image, you had to write a letter to the curator. And you could only use it if you would use it for academic reasons. And we said, okay, the collection is not ours. It's from the Netherlands for the world. We're going to digitize the collection. and we're going to share it with everybody, and everybody can use it, download it, and do whatever they want to do. So we're not the owner of it, we're sharing it for the world. The whole idea is that you can create your own Rijksstudio, so you can create your own little museum. And this, I think, is from last September. Then there were like 240,000 people had their own museum, their own Rijksstudio. And you can not only download it, but you can also, what I really like about it, look very close to the painting. You can touch it with your fingers and get closer by you, so you can see details that you can't see in a museum. So this is a detail of the butterfly, which is, I think, absolutely amazing. And this is the eye of Rembrandt from the Night Watch. And you can also collect and search in different ways. So you can, for instance, collect in the way of red, or if you're redecorating your home with green, you can look for everything which is green, and you can download it and create your own curtains. Or you can make moustache. And we also did a new award, the Rijksstudio Award, where we invited designers to create new designs based on our collection. And here you see some examples, how especially the fashion industry took up that idea of creating new designs with old masters. And this is, for instance, Suit Supply. So bringing this product, actually the core product of the Rijksmuseum, to the audience and put it back in society, I think that really made a step change in the way we are looking at museums now today. And this is 3 months before the reopening. You see there are 99 days, then our campaign started. Actually, we wanted to start 100 days before the opening, but then we had to pay 1 digit extra for only 24 hours. And I said, well, then we start 99 days. And we counted down before the reopening, and we gave every day a new reason to visit the Rijksmuseum within 98 days. And we did it only on the building and on social. And it had a great reach, about 1 million viewers per day at that time. And we started a whole campaign about reopening the museum to the world, and the whole thing was about welcome. And we looked in our collection, and it's actually the only time that we put less focus on the Dutch heritage. Here we said, okay, this is really about an open museum, and we took, for instance, Goya, the artist, and we did it welcome in Spanish, in Japanese, and of course in Dutch. And this was also a very important step in our whole communication strategy. It was about creating these ambassadors and about creating these influencers. We thought, well, we need to have to convince the Dutch journalism here that the Rijksmuseum is really one of the best museums of the world. So then you need to think, okay, who's the best, who's really the best art journalist in the whole world? And this was Simon Schama, it is Simon Schama, I would say so. And he was the only journalist who was invited to the Rijksmuseum before the reopening, and he could write a review about the Rijksmuseum before the official press conference was there. He was not allowed to take any pictures. You see the only pictures there that he takes a picture with his phone, but he was not allowed to use it. And he wrote an absolutely wonderful review of the Rijksmuseum. You see here the summary. What has been done with the Rijksmuseum is less a restoration with some fancy contemporary design than an inauguration of a curatorial revolution. And that was really, as I told you before, about this new presentation where we were integrating arts and history. And this was published about a week before the press opening. And the Dutch journalists, I mean, it's not only my hero, it's really the hero of the Dutch journalists. They were really like, oh my God, Simon Schama, he's the god of art journalism. He's giving this wonderful review. It was completely translated into the NRC. So that was already great. It was reviewed in De Wereld Draait Door. So there was a great kickoff. So everybody was curious, okay, what's happening there? Which was another very important element of this whole campaign was brand ambassadors for these potentials. Because art journalists, that's nice for those people who like art and still read a newspaper, but the majority of the people is not reading any reviews on art and is not reading newspapers anymore. So we thought we need to have different ambassadors for all these different target groups. And as I told you before, we did a lot of market research, a lot of consumer groups within the Netherlands. And during these consumer groups, we learned that the Rijksmuseum people had really forgotten. So we knew that people were asking, oh, is that the museum on the Dam Square? Or is it not already opened? And people were really forgotten what the Rijksmuseum was. So we thought we have to come up with something really surprising. And then I remembered that one of the guards of the Rijksmuseum told me that Ruud Gullit, as a young boy, and Ruud Gullit is, well, he's back in business. He is, of course, assistant bondscoach of the Netherlands. Ruud Gullit was running through the museum because his mother was a cleaning lady in the museum. His mother was a single mother in Amsterdam. She was a cleaning lady, and after school he came to the Rijksmuseum to see his mother, and actually everybody took a little bit care of the little boy. And I thought, well, that would be a great ambassador to have this soccer player as in a TV commercial. So I went to Wim, the director of the Rijksmuseum, and I thought, Wim, I have this great idea. Yeah, everybody has forgotten about the museum. Now, of course, he didn't believe it, because if you're director of a museum, you don't believe that everybody has forgotten about you. Okay, so I had to explain that and show the results. And then I said, and now I want to ask Ruud Gullit in a TV commercial produced by Jan de Bond. And Wim, he's a great guy, but he was looking at me, okay, I did now these whole workshops with brand values, and I did a communication strategy, and now I have to do a soccer player. And so he said, Marjolein, I don't know if you still read newspapers, but I've read he's a soccer player and he's cheating on his wife. And I said, okay. And I said, well, Wim, we're a museum for everybody. Everybody is welcome. And if we're not welcoming men, who like soccer and are cheating on their wife, I think we can close the museum. So he turned a bit red. He said, okay, you try. He won't do it. But anyway, he did that because he was at that time a lot of discussion. I think he needed some other inspiration. And we took the TV commercial with him, but also with Sophie van der Stap. She's a Dutch author, so she was more focused on the, as I told you, the art lovers, more the intellectual. She lives now in Paris, and she's also a model for Chanel, so she has different qualities. And we had this beautiful little girl, Puck. She was 10 years old. She was really addressing the family. So we developed these 3 different TV commercials to address these different groups.
This is a real historic site. My mother used to work here. As a kid, the first thing I did was run to the armory. This building, it's so grand. Look at it. Riches wherever you look. Gentlemen, all okay? That hat, that stuck with me forever. Yeah, it's all coming back. I'm still very grateful to my mom. Ma?
So this started on TV actually 10 days before the opening, and it was launched in De Wereld Draait Door, a primetime TV show in the Netherlands, because they were so surprised. This old classical museum is going to reopen with this soccer player. And he was for 12 minutes there in a live interview. He talked about art. He made all kinds of mistakes, and it didn't matter at all, because he was showing that what he really liked about a museum, that it was about bringing back memories, about showing that your Dutch identity. So it was actually great PR. So at the time that the real museum was open, a lot of people were already thinking, okay, what is this going to be?
We moesten er lang op wachten, maar het is open, het Rijksmuseum.
Das Amsterdamer Rijksmuseum bereitet sich nach langer Renovierung auf seine
will once again become a national source of pride.
The Rijksmuseum is finally reopening.
El Rijksmuseum holandés finalmente abrió sus puertas.
The Rijksmuseum in its new incarnation has a very ambitious goal.
Het grootste en belangrijkste museum van Nederland.
10年にわたる改修工事を終えたオランダのアムステルダム国立美術館が4日報道陣に公開されました。
It's a big thing, and our Chinese viewers will be interested to know and to visit as well.
I'm here because I think it's a very important event for the whole world.
Is it also big in England? I hope so. I've spent the last 3 years trying to make it as big as possible.
Viele wollten immer Rembrandt sehen, die Nachtwache, und sie haben lange, lange darauf gewartet, es wieder hier sehen zu können.
It's hoped that every Dutch child will make at least one visit here by the time he or she reaches their 12th birthday.
Will Gompertz, BBC News, Amsterdam.
Simon McGregor Wood, Al Jazeera, Amsterdam.
This would not happen anywhere else. I think it's like fantastic.
At the press day, there were like 700 journalists from around 60 countries of the world. And what was here actually the trick, it was like a normal way of doing in the Netherlands that you would invite first the Dutch press and then the international press on different occasions. And we said, no, we're going to invite the international and national press together. Because then the Dutch are always a bit more critical towards their own country, and I don't know if you recognize it. If you're from a small country, you actually become proud if another country says you're doing a great job. So it made the Dutch journalists also so proud that there were like so many international journalists. So the whole feeling became much more positive. And the guy who is interviewing there is one of the Jakhalsen. And he called a day before the press opening. He said, I really don't believe you get so many journalists, and I really want to interview your journalists while they're there. And he didn't believe what he was hearing, that, you know, that they're waiting in Japan, China, Germany for our national museum. So, and he broadcast it again on Dutch television, so it was a great synergy. And then, of course, the reopening, you see here our former queen, and that was, sometimes you have to be lucky because it was also her last official performance. And we didn't know it when we planned that date. It was really more or less a coincidence, but of course it was a great help in the press as well. And then we activated this whole idea of the brand with a lot of different partnerships. This is with Albert Heijn, and I still had this idea in my mind. I want to create the same hype as with a soccer event. So we went to Albert Heijn and we said, okay, if there's a soccer event, your whole store is orange. You know, can't you do anything when a national museum opens? You're not only here for soccer in the world. Well, it was first very, very difficult, and in the end, they asked me, what do you actually want? And I said, well, I have only one dream. You know, I have children myself, and I want that children talk with their parents on the kitchen table about art. I think that's a really wonderful thing. And then they said, okay, let's think then about what's on the kitchen table if mothers and fathers sitting there. And we came, actually, milk is always there, at least here. And for a few weeks, in total, there were like 2 million milk cartons. They shared images of the Rijksmuseum with a little text about it in a very simple way, with a little quiz that could play. Well, the people at the cash desk were not so happy with me because you got a €5 discount. So after a year, everybody came with these sore milk cartons. Hello, can I get my discount? But it was a great PR stunt as well. And I also went to all these sponsors and partners, which it was not my responsibility to get these sponsors. But I asked all these sponsors, okay, you know, it's great you give money, but can you also think about how to reach your customers to share the story of the Rijksmuseum? And then ING came with this movie, maybe some of you know it. It was on CNN, it reached 10 million people. You know, when it was presented to me, I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. Well, you will see it. But maybe you can imagine, and then when this idea was presented to me, yeah, we're going to play the night watch in some kind of shopping center, and then we're going to record it in a video. I thought it was quite a stupid idea, but I thought, you know, they're sponsors, let them go. And anyway, I learned in that way, it's also good to trust other people and to be open towards new ideas, and it had a great success as well. And I think by creating this whole partnership, these were just 2 examples, but we had many sponsors who created great communication campaigns as well to support us. We had this great leverage of our brand and our communication strategy. This was a result. We got more sponsors, more private funds, and a lot of friends and partners as well. So then what's next? If you're open, what's next? And how can you then relax and hang back? Well, actually, then the whole game starts. And you have to think about, after the big hype, okay, what are you going to do next? And we discovered half year after the reopening, a lot of the news that people and associations that people had, oh, the Rijksmuseum, that's very busy. You always have to wait and queue in line. So we thought we need to come back and tell the story of the Rijksmuseum again. And it's about anchoring the brand, and we developed then this TV commercial. And the briefing for me to the agency was very simple. I said, going to a museum, and I don't know if some of you recognize it, it's about magic. It's a magical world where you can stand in and you can discover new creative ideas and old history. And then the 7th one, is about keep the brand razor sharp. So after you've done that, you settle the brand, you constantly have to come with new ideas. And then the real trick comes constantly being innovative. Because we want to be more than a museum, we want to be a source of inspiration and creativity, really old masters for people of today. So we were constantly looking about how can we be innovative and surprise people the whole time. Well, this was, for instance, when we acquired this beautiful painting by Jan Asselijn. It's 17th century painting about the flood of Amsterdam. And we asked Daan Rozengaarde, and he made this art performance on the museum square. It's about waterlight. So it was really a new masterpiece created in a reaction of an old masterpiece. It was also about telling other parts of our collection, and this was made by Erwin Olaf for our exhibition Catwalk 2 years ago. And where people could really go to a museum and see a catwalk. We had old men, they were so happy, said, I'm now 80 years old, and for the first time in my life I've seen a catwalk as well. And we also discovered that in this whole discussion about it's so busy, that a lot of complaints was about that people were taking photographs. And we thought, well, if we want to be creative, we have to find another way that people look at a painting. So not through your camera, to your phone, but in another way. And we started the campaign, it's in Dutch, it's Hier Teken. It's about start drawing. And the whole idea is, this is actually more you can take photographs in the Rijksmuseum, this was more for the start of the campaign for that day, is that stop taking pictures, but take a pencil and a paper and then look at a painting or a piece of art and start drawing it, because through drawing you will see more and you will see better. And we launched it during an event, the Big Draw. It was not an invention by us, it's something that's been done in the UK already for a long time. And we invited invited everybody to come to the museum. If you're artist or not, everybody is welcome to start to draw. And we gave drawing classes in places like this. And this is not a fake thing. And what I really liked about this campaign, that we managed to address a whole new group of visitors. So not children who start to draw, but grown-up men who like to draw as well and discover that they like it. And for this special campaign, we developed again, Wim, a nice TV commercial. And now you maybe think, oh, this museum is really rich and has a lot of money. Well, the trick here was that we had all these great sponsors. So we developed a lot of ideas, and then we asked an ING or a KPN or Philips, can you sponsor this part of our program?
At the Rijksmuseum, we've been seeing more and more people drawing lately. And we couldn't be more delighted, because drawing is all about looking. Drawing means you see more. In fact, when you use your own eyes to look, and not your camera or your phone, your amazement is much greater. So to everyone who wants to come and draw, the Rijksmuseum says, welcome.
So this was a campaign we did in 2015, and we also started with a drawing Saturday. So every Saturday you can go to the Rijksmuseum and take a sketchbook and the pencils, they're there for free, and then you can draw and do free drawing classes. Other very important element which was very new to the museum world, that we were reviewing all our communication on our labels within the museum. You see here this beautiful girl. She's drawn in the 17th century, and the text near the painting is it's a Negro girl, and that's a very Eurocentric way of looking at this girl, because if you're a black, you don't really like to be called Negro. So we reviewed all those texts that in a way that everybody would feel inclusive and welcome, and that reached even the New York Times, because we were the first museum to do that in the world. I think it's quite amazing, because I think it's quite logical. We celebrated also the Liberation Day of Suriname. And also a very important element was about, and it was also said in videos before, about reaching school children. And here stands all children to the night watch. We set our goal that every child in the Netherlands has to go to the Rijksmuseum before its 12th birthday. Because then in the Netherlands the differences start. Some go to higher education like gymnasium, some go to lower. Our goal is that every child has seen at least the night watch, and we set up this communication campaign and free buses and transport together with one of our sponsors. And this is a project I'm very proud of, and it was actually also an idea of somebody within the team, also one of our guards. He used to work in Artis, and in Artis, there's the Zoo of Amsterdam. Every year you have one night, it's only for disabled children. And he said, I would really like to have this as well in the Rijksmuseum. So this guard took me and one of my colleagues to Artis to see this event. And we were able, after 2 years, to also bring that to the Rijksmuseum. So 2 times per year. It's called Prachtnacht. We have completely sponsored evening for disabled children or sick children who are not able to come to the Rijksmuseum in normal opening hours. They can come then with their family. And everybody's then working voluntarily, and it's completely sponsored. Well, this is the garden of the Rijksmuseum. Yeah, and this is actually one of the images I like most. I think it's about the museum is now turned into one of the things we're proud of in the Netherlands. It's also with the tulips, and now the spring is starting. It's really an open museum where everybody is welcome. And then, if you ask me what has been the whole trick, is it the renovation, the architecture, is it the presentation, is it the communication? And I think that what really made the difference in the Rijksmuseum is that the whole team that worked in the Rijksmuseum really had this deep love for the museum and the collection. And I think there actually you can make a difference, because maybe you recognize if you're in love, then it gives you energy, you're much more open, you're flexible. So we had this shared love and a shared dream. And I think almost all of our staff in the Rijksmuseum had I Love Rijks on their iPhone. So can you imagine, you go to any organization, everybody has there voluntarily, I love the Hanse University. I don't know how many of you have that on their phone. So, everybody, yeah? Now the Rijksmuseum, I left there 9 months ago. It's now 4 years open, and it still, I think, has proven their success. And I'm still thinking with a great passion back at this time. And now I moved on to my next role in my life. And what I think is still the power of the museum, that these were the first visitors who were there in 2013. And I hope if you're there, and I recognize at least when I'm there, people are still so welcoming to me and open to me, and still everybody's so happy about seeing these new visitors and new people in the museum. So this was my story.